I've already upset one Canadian today with another video that I posted on another channel, so why not make it two? Let's take a look at this video. This is very disturbing on many levels. One, Mike Holmes, we've all come to respect and see his approach to coming in and fixing houses. Well, apparently he's branded certain houses as Holmes Approved Homes, and some of them are being torn down. So let's take a look at this video. It's kind of heart-wrenching. I just finished watching this video, and I'll kind of do a quick reaction to some of the things that I saw. And I don't necessarily want this to be a pile on Mike Holmes. I want to go through this video with the perspective of a builder and also just understanding law in the United States. Again, this is Canada, and just some of the things that I'm seeing that are just wrong with this completely. And I don't necessarily think just one party is at fault here.
In September, a modern home in Meaford, Ontario, lived in for just 2 years,
Crazy.
reduced to rubble.
Real crazy.
It's not easy for neighbor Fayer Johnson to watch.
It's actually a little bit traumatic because these homes were built at the same time as my house.
All right, so in just looking at the demolition, obviously it's very difficult to tell from a far away. I would love to see that inspection report. I would love to see exactly what the defects were. They kind of highlighted throughout this video, but I can't imagine that a house is that bad or that poorly constructed where you have to tear the whole thing down. From what I could tell, I couldn't tell there's major defects. Again, they mentioned mold, structural issues, things like that. But it looked like a pretty good house. And as a new home builder and a renovation contractor, my renovation heart was just sad seeing these being torn down. I can't imagine that you couldn't retrofit or renovate these in such a way that they could be fixed and preserved.
It all started 9 years ago with a promise.
We are currently building Terracewood, a 25-lot healthy home development in Meaford, Ontario.
A selling point?
The world's best-known contractor, Mike Holmes, bought the first house.
I've built my reputation on knowing what can go wrong when a home isn't built right. I'm proud to be working with a new home builder, Third Line Homes.
Holmes endorsed Terracewood as Holmes Approved Homes.
Third Line Homes Approved Homes are built with innovation, integrity, and a commitment to make it right.
All right, well, I'm going to stop right here for a second. Again, this has nothing to do with Mike Holmes or this particular builder, but I'm taking a look at this roof line here. And down in Georgia, I've got my videos called the Redneck Energy Audit. And basically what you could do is look at snow on your roof, or you can look at the frost in your roof. And if it's first thing in the morning, you should be able to see a complete sheet of snow going all the way across. So what I see here is where you ever have melted areas in these pockets over here, it means you have some sort of thermal break and you have energy loss going through there. So again, I don't know what time of the day that this was shot. It could have been midday where the sun's been hitting this and this had a chance to warm up. But whenever I see something like this, where we've got snow in most of those areas and I see like a pocket here and I see lines here, that snow is melting for a reason, and that means you have energy loss coming from the house. Now, in the wintertime, the heat is going to travel from the inside to the outside of the house. It always goes from hot to cold, and in this case, it's traveling through. You don't have a good thermal resistant barrier, which is the insulation. So again, just from an energy perspective, being in Canada, I'm assuming that you want your houses to stay warm because it's very cold up there. So I'm just looking at this, and I noticed that is definitely one of the things that I would have noticed first, just from an energy efficiency point of view.
And that was a factor in Fayer Johnson and his wife's decision to buy into the project.
It did make us feel comfortable knowing that it was a Mike Holmes approved home.
Holmes even posed in Fayard's doorway for a promotional photo during a visit to the construction site. But after they moved in, they discovered their new house had problems.
This is one of the major beams here that had to be replaced.
What could have happened if this weren't replaced?
We may come in one day and find that the second floor is on the first floor.
That's just speculation. If there is a structural issue, definitely you want to take care of it. But I can't imagine that if the beam was slightly undersized, you might see some cracks in the ceiling. We just get to see a significant amount of deflection, but I can't imagine the whole floor or the whole level would have collapsed. It would have collapsed already, especially if it was that undersized where it would have been a safety concern. Now, again, most of these structural defects that you see in houses, they are safety concerns. But for the most part, your house isn't going to fall down. I've seen houses that should have fallen down where drywall's holding them up, but you'd be amazed on how far you can go with poor construction and the house will still stand. I see it happen all the time. So again, I don't think this house would have completely fallen down because of structural issues. However, you would have seen significant deflection, which would have caused the drywall to pop, finishes, and cracking, which is just not a good sign to see.
After a forensic engineering inspection found beams and posts not up to code.
So that's interesting. So what I see here, I see a wall, and I'm not sure if that goes all the way to the ground. If it does, they've got a beam on top of the wall. So I don't understand why you need a beam on top of the wall, because this would have been load bearing. So it wouldn't have been necessary to put that beam up there. But I did see something else in the next clip, and yeah, right here. So if this was the picture of their house, I do see a load point right here. I see a beam going all the way across. I don't know where that wall is that I saw in the previous clip. I see these jack posts, and so probably what happened is they had, I mean, it looks like they had a steel beam here, and we just installed one of these in a house, installed a steel beam, and wood doesn't connect to steel, so you got to pack it out with wood, and then you've got these hangers hanging on that. So it looks like what happened is they had these joists. There must be something above here. I don't see any plumbing. I'm not sure exactly what's above the space, but they didn't follow the engineer's plan, or there wasn't an engineer's plan, and there's a lot of weight on this area. So they ended up having to, looks like it's a quadruple LVL, or at least a double LVL. That's in place to span this whole area. That way there's not going to be any cracks. So they already had some structure in place, but it just looks like somehow there's weight above this area, and they had to put an extra beam in there, which unfortunately involved them having to take out the whole kitchen, which is, not a fun process.
It was just that horrible sinking feeling in your stomach, like, oh my God, I hope our house is going to be okay.
It's more than a home.
Footing the bill for Fayard's repairs?
We are Terrion,
Ontario's consumer protection organization, Terrion. It ensures new home buyers get warranty coverage they're entitled to under their builder's warranty.
And we're here for you.
Terrion claims 13 other Terracewood homes had similar problems, including mold, HVAC issues, and major structural defects.
So, I mean, honestly, if there's mold or HVAC issues, those are easy things to fix. That's usually mold and HVAC go together. Now, if there was like a roof issue or siding issue where water's coming in from the outside, that would cause mold. But if the HVAC was not sized properly to take care of all the moisture and keep an environment that was not friendly to mold inside the house, then the mold probably could have been because of the HVAC. I'm guessing that the houses had to be torn down because of structural defects. There are just so many in there that they decided to, like, hey, this isn't worth it. I mean, to be honest, these houses don't look horrible, but until you know what's behind the walls, like, you never know what is going on here.
Terrion also says the builder Third Line Homes failed to fix the defects, so it has been paying for all the repairs, including repairs to the house previously bought and then sold by one of Mike Holmes' companies, which Holmes had given a thumbs up. Terrion told CBC News, given the nature of the defects in 3 of the houses, demolition was a more reasonable option than repair. This home went down last May. The second demolition happened in September.
Again, they didn't give us specifics as to what was wrong with the houses. Now, the one homeowner, where they made the repair and was able to keep it up, that was simply adding a beam in there. Not the easiest thing to do. However, I can't imagine that adding a beam, which may be like, $10,000, $20,000, is, not reasonable to keep one of these houses up. But to tear it down, I mean, I can't imagine what these houses cost. I guess I can look it up to see, but tearing these houses down has to be very expensive, especially because you've lost all the value of that home by tearing it down. Fixing it, I just, my renovation heart hurts right now just seeing them tear these houses down. instead of trying to fix them. All right, remember we talked about it earlier? I know this is completely off topic, but look at all this snow that you have here, and you see this melting over here. Again, that could be because the sun's back here hitting that and slowly starting to melt it. Or it could be because you've got heat loss from the inside of the house coming up, melting it right. I'm either guessing that's like heat rising, I'm sorry, warm air rising and finding its way due to the stack effect going through the top of the house, or it's the sun just coming across the horizon and starting to melt us a little bit. But I did notice that on this other house that they showed that first house a second ago, where there again. There's our first house where you can see it. But the fact that I see snow over here, complete sheet of snow, and I see it melting over here. That is due to heat loss. And um, if you want to check out the other video that I looked at my house, where you can see some of the heat loss in some of the areas where we don't have good insulation because we can't get to those areas. Again, I lived in a used house. Honestly, my house should be, if these houses are being torn down, my house should definitely be torn down. But I'm not going to tear it down. I'm going to fix it, rebuild it, make it into the house it should be.
The third house, next door to Fayard's, is currently waiting for a demolition date.
How let down do you feel by Mike Holmes?
Several neighbors tried to get in touch with him, and he never replied, never responded to any kind of questioning about coming by to see how things are going. So I'm a little peeved with that.
Was there a hope he would come, because he is the guy who makes it right?
Yeah, there was a hope that he would come and he could be almost a pseudo leader in trying to get it fixed and get it right.
Again, I know they're going to show that he was a part investor in this, but if he wasn't the actual owner, the person who pulled the permits, who built the house, is responsible for the repairs. Mike Holmes could possibly come in and try to put some pressure on them. We don't really know what's going on behind the scenes here. Unfortunately, it looks like Mike, put his brand on another company. That company failed, and unfortunately, it looks like he's got a tarnished brand as a result of that. I'm sure he'll bounce back from this. He's seems like a stand-up guy, and from what I've heard, he is a good builder, knows what he's talking about. All right, I'm gonna go back a second. So let's look at some of the names here. You've got plumbing and heating, and you've got the Blue Plan Engineering. I don't know if that's the engineer for this. So what I'm thinking on this, if they're saying the structural issues and there are mold and HVAC issues, it's going to come down to two things. It's going to come down to the structural design and also the mechanical design. So hopefully the plumbing and heating contractor had the proper design for this. And also I'm hoping that the structural engineer did the right thing. But if a builder is following what the structural engineer tells them to do, then it's really on the structural engineer to make sure they're providing it correctly. Now, I was explaining to one of my clients earlier, and it's like they asked, like, why should I hire you? It's like, even though, and again, I'm a builder who has my thumbprint on every one of her projects, much different than a speculative home builder like this. Like the owner of the company is not going to be able to be on every project. I question everything. I look at the structural drawings. If I don't see something I like, I go back to them, ask them to redraw it, make it better, and make sure that what they are actually drawing is possible to execute in the field. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on here. I would like a lot more details. This is kind of a teaser clip, and again, it's more to get a reaction out of people. But what I would like to do is see exactly what the structural defects were with these houses, besides just a beam being in the wrong place. I'm not sure if it was the engineer drawing it incorrectly, or if it's actually the framers and the builder not following the engineer's blueprints.
The Osbornes counterclaimed Terry had shut them out of the ability to inspect and make repairs to the homes. The Holmes Group, in its statement of defense, claimed it had no involvement whatsoever with the project. Maybe not, but CBC News has obtained documents that show another company run by Holmes, M. Holmes Holdings, provided a total of $390,000 in private mortgages at 10% interest to help third-line homes buy Terracewood lots.
Yeah, but you're not. He's acting as a lender at that point. He's not acting as a contractor. So you wouldn't go back to anybody that's lending money for these projects and hold them accountable for improper work. Now, there is an assumption because of the Mike Holmes brand that you're getting a certain quality. So we can, bring that into question. But the fact that he was invested in these, and just as a bank saying that, okay, well, he's going to be responsible for these properties because he was an investor in it. That's really not fair, because you're not going to hold the bank accountable for anything that's happened on the site. The bank's not responsible for inspecting and making sure that the quality of the homes is a certain quality and making sure it's built correctly. They're just there to make sure it's built, and they're going to come out and inspect, but only inspecting to make sure a certain percentage of the house is completed so they can work on the funding. So I don't know if that necessarily ties into this because of that. Again, the brand is disappointing, but I'm not sure investing in this is going to make a big difference. Now, the inspections that you do want to make sure are happening correctly, and again, I really would like some more information on this and someone to do a deeper dive into what is actually happening. If there's any homeowners out there that live in one of these houses, I'd really be curious to see what these defects are, so I can offer, Hoots on Homes suggestions on making sure that these are fixed correctly.
If Terrion is stepping in and saying we need to bulldoze the houses, that's bad.
Varun Sriskanda is an experienced realtor and an expert on real estate law.
So here we have.
We asked him to review the documents we uncovered.
What's your assessment of how involved Mike Holmes was in this project?
He was extremely involved. I mean, as soon as you're lending money on the property and the project, you have a vested interest in seeing it be built. As soon as you're marketing it and advertising that it's approved by you, then you're involved.
He's using his brand on it. I think lending the brand to portray a certain quality in the house is very damning here. Like, for instance, we wouldn't use our brand or let somebody build in our name. And a lot of times I do find people trying to copy our brand, and we do try to protect our brand, so we try to get them shut down. It's like, hey, like, we are Sawhorse. We're the only one in this area. Don't use our brand, because we've worked really hard to maintain that brand over the years. So lending your brand out to somebody else to say that, like, that this house is being built a certain way is an issue. We also have in our contract that if you hire us, that we have to be let known when you're selling the house if you're going to say Sawhorse worked on it. Like, for instance, if somebody just used us to replace a front door and they say, hey, this is a Sawhorse house, well, yeah, the front door is, but the rest of the house is garbage. It probably needs to be torn down. And so you can't use our brand without our permission, because if we're building a new house, of course, say this is built by Sawhorse, I like you to disclose when we built it. It was built 30 years ago. It's going to be different than something we built 5 years ago. But if we just did a bathroom renovation, then you try to use our brand in trying to sell the house, that is an issue. That's why I've got that provision in our contract. Most people, and what they're doing is, like, they're creating a rain screen. They've got a ventilation gap behind the siding, and they're using these 2x4s, which are huge, for furring strips. And what this is going to allow is air movement behind the siding. If it's going to get wet, it's going to dry out. So you don't ever want your siding to be directly on the sheathing or the house wrap. It looks like this is Typar house wrap, which is a pretty good house wrap. I know the guys at Typar, and that's, I believe I saw in a previous one, I saw OSB panels up there. So they've got the Typar, the OSB panels, then they're putting these furring strips to create this rain screen. And what that's going to allow is, like, if there is rain, it's going to be able to drain out. But I do see they have some flashing at the bottom. What I don't see is, like, okay, I see some head flashing right there. So if water comes down this house wrap, it's going to hit this tape, which is going to come to this flashing right here. This flashing on the outside is to capture any water that is coming down, and that's probably where they're going to put the siding on top of that. So from what I can tell, it looks okay. I personally like the zip system because I can use the tape, the liquid flash, and you can check out our video on how we made a house to passive house standards just by using liquid flash and the zip system. But on all the houses that we're making that are passive houses, where we've got the insulation on the outside of the house, we are using furring strips, and we are making sure that we have proper flashing to get all the water away from the house, allowing it to dry out. Hey, you know what? I'm really glad the film crew didn't make these guys look bad. If you look at, they are wearing good safety gear. And if you look at this one, he's got his fall protection on. Um, Anytime you're going to be on TV, make sure that you're not going to break any laws or break any OSHA violations. Again, I know this is Canada; they've got their own codes up there. But in the United States, if you're on TV and you're breaking laws, OSHA could easily come out and say, "Yeah, I saw you on TV." One time we were doing this HGTV show. This is probably 20 years ago or so, and we were doing this exterior renovation, which is it was curb appeal on the block, and they wanted us to do all this work, and it's like, hey, these new laws came out with lead. We have to show all that on TV. I know it doesn't look as good, but we need to make sure everyone's got the protective gear on, not only to protect the employees, because that was our standard practice, but they didn't like the amount of plastic we put on the ground. Again, these are new laws. The EPA was out there writing fines, and I believe the fines were in the tens of thousands of dollars, maybe in the $20,000 back then. So I definitely didn't want to be on a national show breaking the law. So you always need to make sure if you're going to be on camera that what's in the camera, or at least what's going to be up to code, because otherwise, the code enforcers could come back and say something to you. Okay, so what do we learn here? Several key takeaways that I have from this, and I just want to show you what we do a little bit differently to make sure that this doesn't happen on our projects. Well, first of all, I don't trust anybody, and I encourage my clients not to trust anybody, even me. I mean, there's a certain level of trust, certain level of confidence that we have on the project. But if we're counting on the city inspectors, and if we're counting on the plans to be 100% accurate, that's not always the case. That's why you need to look at everything critically. And, that's something that I do personally on all of our projects. I look at the plans, I look at the specs, I look at how, from a builder's point of view, what are the things that are going to fail in this project? Let the client know that these are issues and these are things that we need to address on the plans before we get started. We also take a look at the structural drawings, and it's like, all right, these are nice structural drawings. We require that the structural engineers that draw the drawings also come out to inspect. It's their license that's on the line. We want to make sure that we are building this house to their standards. Now, are they going to find things when they come out? Probably. And are we okay with that? Absolutely. So we want them to look at the house, say, these are the issues that we think you're going to have. Yes, we drew it one particular way, but when we come out here, we see a few other things. We encourage that. We also encourage third-party inspectors to come out. So if our homeowners say, hey, I want this inspector to come out and take a look at it, by all means, come take a look at it. We've got nothing to hide. And if anything, you're helping us. You're making sure that, if we happen to miss something that is going to be an issue later on, we get it fixed now, because it's going to cost us more down the road. Yes, there is a 1-year warranty that's required in the state of Georgia. We have typically a 3-year warranty. Sometimes we have a longer warranty depending on what type of project it is that we're putting in place. However, if you are just counting on that warranty, it's like there's you still are open to liability beyond that time, and I believe up to 7 years in certain places. If there's a defective craftsmanship. So anytime we could get that fixed and addressed, absolutely, let's try to nip that in the bud before we get started. So you've got that aspect of it. What I tell everyone is, like, you only get what you expect when you inspect. I tell that to my clients. I also tell that to my trade partners and also our project managers. We always have to look at everything. When we're looking at it, everyone knows that we're looking at it with a critical eye, and they have to be on their best behavior and making sure that they are doing the best possible job for us, because otherwise we're going to make them look silly. Sometimes we'll make a YouTube video showing some of the mistakes that they've made, or we might just not hire them again. It's like, these are very fundamental mistakes. If you don't understand that and you can't work to our standard, then we just can't work with you. So we try to give people a chance. We try to train them up. If they're willing to learn, we're definitely willing to work with them. But we expect a certain level of competency, and also an understanding that we want to build a certain way, and you have to meet our standard. That being said, I talked about bringing the third-party inspectors online. What we do is, for every project, we look to achieve some sort of green building certification, which means that we have to hire a third party. They come out, look at the house, look at the standards of that particular certification to make sure that we're building towards that standard. So in addition to the structural engineer looking at it, in addition to the municipality where we pulled the permit looking at it, we're inviting a third party. And these guys aren't necessarily friendly to us. I mean, we're friends. We like the way they work. We like the way they inspect the houses. However, they are, their reputation is making sure that we're following the guidelines of that particular program. They're going to test the house. They're going to probably run a blower door. They're going to have a duct blaster, infrared cameras, inspections where they're looking at all the details of how we put things together. So very important metrics that they are looking at to make sure that we're following the guidelines of that program. So, that's kind of our self-imposed inspections outside, just to kind of make sure that we are staying, I wouldn't say honest, because we try to build very well. We have a lot of integrity in our process, but it also allows us to say we want to build this way because we're building towards a certification. And, internally, we know that there's going to be testing on the house to prevent potential failures, which is going to, could open us up to liability if those things don't work in the future. So again, that's why I tell people green building, but green building with a certification. Not necessarily because you need that certificate, but you have that assurance that there is a third party, not just some sort of brand that says, hey, we're building towards the standard. You have somebody out coming out and testing. You can see the results of those tests and the inspections. And these are very important things to, for you to know that your house is built a certain way. Does this mean that Mike Holmes certification process is not good? I honestly don't know. I don't have enough facts in this process. Their claim was that they actually didn't purchase the package where they came out to inspect. I don't know what's involved in their process. It may be wonderful. I see quite a few people listed on their site as certified builders that build towards their process, but I really don't know how that works. So is it going to hurt to go through that process? Probably not. Again, hire Mike Holmes if they have something that is part of their neighborhood saying like we build a certain way, but also hire somebody that hire one of those home inspectors that's one of those deal killers. A lot of real estate agents don't like some of these home inspectors because they come in, they find so many things wrong with the house that it ends up not getting sold, or the seller is really upset with the buyer. But that's protecting the consumer. That's protecting the end user, whoever's going to buy that house, and not buying the house with a bunch of landmines in it, and they have to go through and demine the whole house. These are things you definitely don't want to have to deal with. So our recommendation is get that third party certification. If you can't like during construction, but if you're purchasing a house, make sure you hire a home inspector that also is a home energy auditor. So you're not only looking at code violations, you're looking at the energy code, the building code, performance of the house, and these are going to point out things that are going to cost you a lot of money down the line, so you can get them fixed now, or at least negotiate this as part of the sale. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I know there's a lot to unpack here. Again, we're not piling on Mike Holmes. We're not piling on this particular builder. We don't really know all the facts. I see, what has been presented in this particular clip, very sensational. I saw a few holes in it myself. If you follow the steps that we just talked about at the conclusion of this, you will have an amazing project, and you won't have to worry about some of the things that these poor homeowners had to deal with in this particular video. Make sure you like and subscribe this video if you want to see more like this. And we've got another video where we are actually removing a wall, kind of doing something that if you saw the retrofit in this particular video where they're adding that LVL, we did that in a house, and we've got a video coming out next week. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can get access to that video as soon as it comes out. Thanks again. See you guys next time.